My house is more than 3 miles from the pipeline, but I don't live in my house. I live in my community. I live in Linvilla Orchards, where I take my kids to play in the playground. I live at Wolf's Apple House, where we go shopping for vegetables. We live at the library. We live at the community center. We live on our highways, at friends' houses, at restaurants, at coffee shops. We're always out in the vicinity of the pipeline. The pipeline has been presented by Sunoco Logistics as just another pipeline, a boon to the economy. It's been presented along with all of the so-called positives and none of the risks. There's been a lack of investigation, a lack of research, and a lack of understanding, and a lack of advocacy for the constituents who have raised these concerns. This is not like the pipelines that are in our area. This is a much larger pipeline, 20 inches in diameter. It's a very high pressure pipeline, up to 1,500 psi. And it's not carrying natural gas. It's carrying hydrocarbons, ethane, propane, and butane, very different materials. They're called natural gas liquids. And the properties of these liquids make them more dangerous than the pipelines that we're accustomed to, as does the size and the pressure and the fact that there is no odorant added. So if there is a leak, we have no way to detect it. It's not an energy pipeline. It's not a pipeline that's bringing natural gas to heat homes. It's a pipeline that's bringing petrochemicals to Marcus Hook to put onto ships to take to Scotland and the Netherlands for plastics manufacturing. Pennsylvania is situated on the Marcellus Shale, which is a huge supply of natural gas resources and hydrocarbon resources. And out of that Marcellus Shale flows gas and chemicals and a lot of money. There are many scenarios that could occur in the event of a leak. We're concerned about the more catastrophic worst-case scenarios that are possible. One such catastrophic worst-case scenario is that a leak would occur, a large-scale leak, and it would be accompanied by an explosion due to finding an ignition source. And that explosion could extend with thermal impacts up to 1,800 feet. We know from an example in West Virginia of a similar 20-inch ethane pipeline that when it exploded, the thermal impacts went out to 2,000 feet. But that was in a cornfield, so nobody was injured, nobody was killed. It was only damage to structures. Here, within 2,000 feet, we have hundreds and hundreds of people. We just don't have the space to accommodate an explosion that large in our community, and it's possible. The likelihood of there being a leak is part of what's so concerning to us. If we were talking about a company that had a stellar track record, they have a reputation for keeping their products in their pipes, I might be less concerned. But we're talking about Sunoco Logistics, we're talking about Energy Transfer Partners, and this is a corporation that has a history of leaks. They have a history of a lot of leaks. In fact, they've had 3 leaks in the last year on Mariner East 1. It offends me that no one has looked at the route with regard to public safety. And what that says to me is that there's a disregard for public safety. The corporation Sunoco Logistics chose the route based on existing easements that have existed for decades, easements that existed in a time before suburban subdivisions, before this community grew and emerged into a densely populated community. There's no regard for the fact that the pipeline now runs 500 feet from a children's playground or 800 feet from sports fields. There is a work center for adults with developmental disabilities and Down syndrome 50 feet from the pipeline. What that means is that, first of all, in the event of an explosion with immediate ignition, there is no possibility for evacuation. Somebody has made a cost-benefit analysis and they've determined that the risk is acceptable and that perhaps our lives are expendable, or maybe there's a dollar value on our lives and they've decided that they can afford it. It's a risk that we're not comfortable with and that we're not willing to accept, and we're certainly not willing to accept on behalf of our children or other vulnerable populations in our community. We simply cannot have a tragedy occur at our school or at any of the 40 schools in Pennsylvania that are in too close proximity to this pipeline. We can't have scores of school children leave in the morning and don't make it home at the end of the day. It's a travesty that anyone even allowed this to go forward. We find ourselves in a situation that we shouldn't be in, and we find ourselves trying to prevent a tragedy that we can foresee. Parents are petrified. They're absolutely petrified at the thought of sending their child to school every day in the blast zone of this pipeline. What could happen if it leaks? We think about our children who have asthma. My child has asthma. She's been in life-threatening respiratory distress more than once. What's going to happen if these children are exposed to the gases escaping the pipe? What's going to happen if they have to run half a mile? This is why we fight. This is the fight of mothers, of mama bears, to protect our children. And we're not saying, not in my backyard, move it to somebody else's backyard. We're saying this should not happen anywhere, anytime, any place. Pennsylvania is known as an easy take state. It's easy to come in, to set up shop, to extract the fossil fuels, and to do what you want to do. The regulation is lax. Pennsylvania may be an easy take state. We're not going to be an easy take community. We're not going to be easy take parents. We're not going to be an easy take school. This is something that we have to resist.